Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Paulie Eyes of Carbondale, the official coaches show of Saluki Athletics. Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
Welcome back, everybody, to Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Paulie Eyes of Carbondale. Before the rain, I guess we can call it. It's going to be a wet week here in Carbondale, and honestly, it's going to be a wet week throughout the Midwest. But, hey, nothing can rain on the parade, though, of the great weekend that Coach Saluki's had in Nashville, and she's here to recap it all and, of course, preview this weekend against Indiana State. Coach Sewell, congratulations. You knew it was a big-time series, and all eyes were on it across the league. And when you play with that type of pressure and you go and you win 2 or 3 games, even more so on the road against a really good team, it really checks all the boxes.
Yeah, and I think we just walked out of there just super proud of our club. I mean, you know, our history with Belmont has been we've played each other hard since 23. So, and Maya Johnson is the real deal. And I thought, you know, we saw her at night the first time, and she dealt. I mean, that was about as good as she's been. And then for us to come back the next day and turn it right around and see her again, I was really just proud of us for being patient. I think we talked about going into that next day like, hey, let's see if we can cut these strikeouts in half. That's 6 or 7 more balls in play. And I think we cut it into a third. So
to attack someone that's been so good in Johnson and to do it really emphatically in the way your team did, I mean, what does that say about your group to have that short turnaround to come right back? And wasn't like it was great conditions either. You had to battle through the rain all weekend.
Yeah, and I like that we never acted like we were under a ton of pressure. I think it was just a really focused weekend. It wasn't like, oh, this is going to decide the Valley. It was more just like, hey, let's figure this out and get our best effort onto the field against her at some point. And I thought we took the loss that night as a learning opportunity, not so much like a devastating, like, hey, we swung a lot and missed, you know. And I think I sent a text early that morning, here's some things that I want to focus on. Everybody popped up right back, yeah, let's do it. And I thought we came out relaxed, and I really felt like it almost had Belmont more uncomfortable than it had us uncomfortable. So,
what do you really contribute that to with your team to find that sense? I don't want to say sense of peace, but that sense of competitiveness to understand the moment.
I think it's what we've been through in the preseason, and we talk a lot about being consistent, showing up consistently. That you cannot in this game go from high to low to high to low. It will exhaust you way too early in the season before you're really in the heart of it. And I'm constantly doing this to them. Like, let's just be here. You can have fun with the high moments, but don't really linger in the low moments. And I think the leadership has been great. I think it's light when it should be light. It's never really too heavy. You know, even if we're not performing perfectly. I mean, nobody ever thinks they've blown the game, you know, and I think it's about being teammates and trying to make sure that we get right back on track.
Focusing on game 1, which you won 10-3, look, you've seen leads this year at times evaporate somewhat quickly, and when you're up 6-2 in the 6th inning, you think, oh, 4-run lead, 4-run cushion, this should be good enough. But then those 3 home runs in the 6th inning, those are massive because when it's 6-2, and look, I know it seems maybe drastic for people, but hey, if you can load up the bases in one swing of the bat and tie a game, anything is well within reach in college softball and college baseball.
Yeah. And you've seen that across the board in all games and all conferences. You cannot put too much traffic on, or you are always one swing away from being back in games. I just think it allowed us to get Newcomb. Newcomb was a little bit sore going into the weekend. It allowed us to get her in, let her get loose, and then get her out. And then we finished with Dahlstrom, who is kind of healing up from a finger injury. I know that sounds small, but it's really been bothering her. And get her some time in the league. And then it kind of worked out really perfectly that we took those big swings. And I think that's what nobody, you know, we love to do it, but it's kind of what we're expecting. And I think there's an expectation to it, not a surprise that we can go back to back to back. I think a lot of people are thinking anybody could go back to back to back. That's how much there's the little guys that have hit them out this year. So, and you know, I think it's just a product of just staying even. I really do, and it's we do have a lot of fun, but we also try to stay very just emotionally stable throughout the whole game, knowing the game is never over until 21 outs. So.
One of the aspects to your team that, and you can look at, no doubt, Jackie plays a massive role. Sure. Emma Austin, huge role. Anna Carter and the energy and her enthusiasm and personality that she brings. But can you really put value into what Erin Lee has meant to this team and the impact she has had this year? Not just this weekend, which was clear she had a massive impact, but what she's meant to your team all year long.
By far the steadiest human being on the planet. I mean, just one of those people. She's put in a ton of work over the last 2 years to really settle down. I think her offense kind of came last. Her defense came first for us, and it showed up big. And I mean by just a clutch player. It's the reason why you do not look at people's batting averages in terms of production. That's who right now I'm picking at the plate if we need to score big runs fast. So I want her. I think she can manage the strike zone better than ever. Never too high, again, never too low. She may strike out. You won't notice it. You won't look out on the field and think, oh, it's the Erin Lee show ever. But she swung a big bat this weekend and has been swinging a huge bat in Valley play. And again, just doesn't get too down. You'll often see her. She misses a little bit of practice during the week, comes in, does a lot of very simple extra work, very routine, just stays in her, you know, own abilities, and great student, great standards, SIU softball through and through, and I think has really settled down and settled into her own, and is just one of those leaders that you need, because there's the Anna Carter, right, that's the high, fun, exuberant personality, and then there's the Jackie Liss that's going to get after you and kind of trash talk you, and then there's just the Erin Lee, right, and the steady Eddie of the group. And when she says something, people listen.
What's the best part of when you look at someone like Erin, who's in her third year within the program, who has grown up, kind of seen the leaders in front of her do what they do, now it's her opportunity to do it. You talk so much about player development. How much will Erin Lee be a piece of that, of as an example of what player development is here at SIU for softball?
Well, in this day and age, right, that maybe is a player who, after her freshman, maybe sophomore year, decides, hey, it's not for me. I'm going to go get in the portal and do something else. They're not. But that kid has just stuck with it and stuck with her work and has not ever challenged any of us. It's been perfection in everything, and just trusted it. And that's the story that I will always. She reminds me, we've had a lot of great second basemen here. Jana Spivey was one. Maddie Vermejon was one. Erin Lee will be one. It's why you want kids to stick around and stay in the system and develop. And if you want, you know, immediate satisfaction, then this may not be the place for you. But if you can put in the work and develop each aspect of your game, it will show up much like it has for Erin this year.
Looking you as a team, as a collective group, we talked about the improvement from early on in the season. That was no doubt needed. No doubt a huge part of that attention was the defensive side for your team. What has, just in terms of being able to get outside more, having that opportunities here at home, where have you seen this team really buy into knowing that was a weakness and needed to get shored up?
Yeah, and I think it definitely was from time outside. We haven't, of course, this week's going to be different, but we haven't been in that. That indoor is amazing, but it's turf, and it just doesn't play the same. And I think consistently playing a lot of softball has been good for us, constantly going out and being, and those guys have been coming early and taking their reps. That's a feel thing for them, and I think they're really getting comfortable. You can see it in the outfield too. But I think part of it is we had to bring it to light, right? We don't ignore it. We're going to say, hey, this is, I think at 9:40 something, we were getting ready to finish the worst ever in the program. And I know this club is not that club. So we really said, hey, this is the area that I think we can really improve the fastest on in a few games. And I think you've seen that, I think, fielding trending over the last 3 weeks in the 960s and 970s. And again, we can't control every aspect of defense. There's just some elements, but we've been through the worst of it. Rain, wind,
Yeah.
all the things, turf, not turf, and have started to settle down and trust it a little bit more. But I think the ability to say, hey, this is a glaring thing that we have to figure out. And our team was perfectly okay with us being honest with them and saying, hey, it does have to get better.
We're going to spotlight Erin Lee on the show. She's coming on, but
Yeah.
Mackenzie Newcomb will also be on the show today. Of course, the Valley Newcomer of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
She one of her great answers that she talked about with Mike True leading into the season was when she gets in the circle, it's like Mac on crack.
Yep.
I think was what was her answer.
Yep.
And so many could say like just her personality when she gets on that field is just completely different.
Totally.
How would you describe her? Like what would be ways where you're like, this is Mackenzie who like you were recruiting and talking to, getting to know, but then like what do you enjoy most to see what she turns into when she steps into the circle?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like putting on a Superman cape, right? Like for some, having that ball in their hand, and those are the pitchers that you want. This is my place, and this is where I belong, and I can command this, and I can help my team. But I think off the field, she's a very sweet, kind, like she would open the door for you. She would help your grandma. She would walk your dog. You know, when we were recruiting her, she would almost get emotional about coming back here. To see that then pitch on the field, you're thinking that kid probably never sheds a tear, but she's just a sweet soul, very Southern, raised amazingly by a great family, and has put in a lot of work, and she really just wants to go out with that championship in hand, you know, and it's not this obsession. It doesn't drive her crazy. It's just that was her standard, you know, and I think, you know, we did recruit her a little around the first time, and I don't know who we signed instead, but it was like the best second chance that we've had for each other, this program and her. So Mac on crack, that is, we call her macaroni, so we're always like, or Mac attack. And then, you know, we joke with her, you know, when she's getting late in a series, I'm like, hey, how's the bus doing? She's like, the bus is getting ready to break down, or the bus has plenty of gas. And she reminds me of that, like, Jerome Bettis type. Like, she can just, like, hammer. But she, like, it's a switch that she flips, and she's a different human. But it's a really cool thing to watch because she loves to carry a team.
Well, of course, this weekend you look at Indiana State. Coach Pooch moved on, took a really good job at Notre Dame. What have you seen now with the new regime in Terre Haute, and kind of what their makeup is that maybe it's similar to what Coach Pooch had, but obviously what are some differences as well that you'll see in Indiana State?
Yeah, I think what's happened with them is, again, played a really good non-conference and then have settled down really nicely in the Valley and Valley play. I've known Wendy. I don't know her that well, but she's always taken teams and built them back up, so it wouldn't surprise me. I think their hitting has gotten even better since they entered Valley play. They returned 2, maybe 3 pitchers, so she has a good staff intact, didn't really lose a whole lot on the mound. So I'm interested to see them on film. I think they've been very steady, just hitting very base-to-base, hitting, timely pitching, those types of things. When they pitched well, they played well, kind of like us. So excited to get him on the field. And
through the years, I know obviously Kelly being in year 1 there, but we've talked about it even before Coach Pooch was there.
Yep.
Indiana State has kind of had that fabric of a program of being very pesky, blue-collar DNA. Like, you can't always buy into what necessarily the record shows, which right now their Valley record is positive in terms of 5-3, but they've always been that scrappy bunch that, hey, don't be surprised if, especially come May, if they find a way into the tournament championship game.
They would run you to death, bunt you to death, squeeze you to death, first and third you to death, like very blue collar. I think that's a great way to put it. And it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of that has rolled over because Wendy's very similar in the programs that she's built. So.
Well, obviously, you know, this weekend we talked about it, the weather is going to be a massive challenge. I don't necessarily want to get into a ton of like what the schedule could look like because it's no doubt going to change. But more of kind of a knowledge piece for the fans when you do have a week like this where it's clear you don't have a turf field. That makes it more of a challenge at Charlotte West. What are the protocols that you go through working with Indiana State, working with the league office? How does all of that kind of shift out of what the schedule could potentially look like and the hurdles that there are hurdles that you have to get through.
Yeah, the good thing is we've been talking since Monday about, I think once everybody got settled, like, hey, this is a kind of no-win situation through Saturday. Pretty consistent rain. Our field we've dried out on purpose, very dried out. We've fought dryness all summer or all spring long, but we will trench it, tarp it, and be hopefully draining pretty well. But if anybody's field is set to take what we're going to get, it's probably ours. So good. I like that we're at home for that reason. We can kind of control some of those factors and then warm up inside. I would suspect the league has protocol for that, so they do expect 3 games to, you to try for the 3 games, and we can switch to the double, single, double. The interesting part will be, because we're now playing a lot of travel partner, how do we manage that for next week? You're constantly looking ahead with your club. So I think we're working through that right now. Indiana State's been fantastic. They've always been great at communication with us, and they value their softball program. So
that's why you never look stressed. I mean,
right.
I always go, man, I understand why Coach Sewell is always smiling.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I tell you that we have incredible game ops
Yes.
here, and with Katie and Matt, and we're in our grounds crew guy Austin. They've already thought ahead, so we were able to be on the road, and they were already thinking ahead. So it's been a nice, to have them just calling and saying, hey, we're ready for you when you get back. So.
No question. Well, I'm excited to get Macaroni here on the show. Mackenzie Newcomb and, of course, Aaron Lee are both going to join us. Should be great. Coach, appreciate the time. And, look, whenever the 3 games happen, we look forward to them this weekend here in Carbondale.
Thanks, Luke.
Once again, when we come back, Justin Fetcho is going to join us, head coach of Saluki Men's Golf. This is Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale. Welcome everybody back to Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale. Taking a timeout, talking from Jen Sewell softball. Bring on men's golf. Head coach Justin Fetcho. Hard to believe, already I believe through 4 spring tournaments, and in the month of April, there's just 2 left before the conference championship. Coach Fetcho, that's why you have no gray hair right now. You just look stress free.
Now my son says just cut it real short on the sides. The gray goes away, so that's what I try to do.
Well, look, we caught up with you back in the fall, and this is our first time catching up with you in the spring. So how has the spring with 4 events? I know it's been a busy February and March for your group.
Yeah, it has been busy. I think that spring golf is a little bit different. You're coming off of your quote-unquote off season where you're not competing for several months, and so sometimes it could take a while to kind of get into it, but we've had a good group that's worked extremely hard, and I feel like through the first 4 events we've seen a lot of positive stuff. We've seen things that we obviously need to improve on between now and conference championship time, but I think we're starting to see some good stuff, and the guys are starting to understand it themselves too, which helps with the buy-in, that they know the things that we need to do to be successful, and we're working extremely hard to try to make that happen.
Every coach loves to point to their culture when they have it and when it's really good. Your program, no doubt, lost some key pieces, but you still had a good core coming back. What has the foundation of the program that you built here, Coach Fetcho, that you believe has shown this year, and what makes you proud about what your guys have shown to this point?
Yeah, no, I think our culture is that, and I talk to recruits and we talk to our players like that, we pride ourselves on player development. We pride ourselves on our players getting better, whether that's physically, mentally, through statistics, whatever. We're trying to dive in and leave no stone unturned for them to find ways for their game to improve, and ultimately that starts, middle of August, running through, end of April into May, hopefully into the NCAA postseason, where we look at it and we're like, we got extremely better from that moment to now. There's ups and downs that go along with it. That's part of the experience. It's part of growing. But I think that our players, they know that they have to work extremely hard. I think we push each other, every single day to try to see that improvement through competition, both on the road and at home. And like I said, I think that you want to play well all the time, but in our sport, it's a good time to start to play your better golf come April, and hopefully we're going to see that here in this month.
You mentioned that time off when you get it from the fall ultimately to the spring. How do you as a coach navigate those waters in February and March that you've been through, of knowing that time break, what you really work on with your group, with the team, to make sure that, hey, once you start getting to April, once you get to the championships, they're feeling their best and they feel they can go perform at their best?
Right. We're obviously in a results-driven culture, right? I mean, everybody looks at the results, and that, from a personal feeling, that makes you feel like you did something well or not well. And I think we try to take that as we're trying to go out and compete the best that we can. And obviously shoot the best scores and do all that. But I think it's really trying to dive into saying, hey, did our approach play get better this week? Did we get more balls up and down this week? How was it from a three-putt standpoint? How were we mentally? So I think we try to dive into the specific areas outside of, what did we shoot this week? Oh, was it better or worse than last week? We try to really try to sort through it and see if we are making those improvements, because again, coming off of not playing, and in our sport, we travel around a lot, and so we've seen a wide variety of programs that probably didn't have to take as much time off as we did. Maybe some warmer weather, some people that have played more. We played our first tournament in mid-February. There might be some teams that had already played a tournament by then and got that. So it's hard to sit there and just specifically say, hey, we're taking this just on the result surface, but we've also challenged ourselves pretty good. I think, if you look at it, I know we're in the mix of, college basketball season right now, but if you just try to compare what it is that we're doing, I would say that our group has competed almost in every single event we've played NCAA tournament teams that you're filling out in the bracket, we've played against them this spring, so we're kind of getting a chance to see how we are and how we stack up against that.
One of the areas that has shown with your track record that you've been here is not just being able to recruit high school guys that come in and perform well for you, but you've also been able to spotlight guys if you need to go to the transfer portal or bring transfers in with experience from other schools to really hit on some key guys. Anthony has been an outstanding ad this year, transferred in from Arkansas State. What did you see from him that you liked about him from maybe a year ago at this time, and not so much a year ago at this time, but through the recruiting process, to now what he has shown you, what he's been able to do throughout this year, and what type of pace he's really shown for the rest of his team?
Yeah, Anthony likes to joke about. I've been at Illinois. I coached Thomas Peters and Thomas Dietrich from Belgium, and then we had Matisse Bassard here from Belgium, and he's telling me that he's keeping the Belgian connection going. And so I think initially that's how Anthony was here. He had that. We had Matt kind of knew who he was, so we had kind of communicated a little bit about Anthony and whatever had happened with his situation at where he was. It wasn't a fit for him, and he was looking for something else. And the more that we got talking, we felt like it was going to be a good fit for him here, and he stepped right in, and he's really taken off. His game has set up for really no matter where we've went. And again, we travel all over, so it's not like it's not like his game is just designed for one particular style of play. He's a very consistent, very straight hitter. Got a decent short game, and his putting has been pretty good. And we've watched him finish in the top 10, top 15, top 20, top 25 several times throughout the course of the season. And I think with that, sometimes if you're at a situation and maybe you struggle, or maybe you're not being able to get in the lineup or reap all of those things, it's hard to maybe look internally and gain the confidence in yourself. And I think for him, maybe he didn't have as much of that when he first got here just because of that. But I think each week, each time he's been out to play, he's gaining more and more confidence in himself. And I think if, just taking it from last week, I told the guys that, and I told him at Oregon, he finished 8th, I think. And I say this with all due respect, that he hit it as bad as I've seen him hit it that week. Like he just wasn't on, but just mentally he was so sharp with everything else, just because he knew that he could play at a high level, that he was able to just kind of transform having not his best ball striking into being able to compete, and that's what we're looking for.
Anthony may be the only one that can answer it because he's the one that speaks from himself personally, but what do you believe has led to his wiring to be so strong mentally?
Yeah, I think that he has proven himself as, what we call a gamer. He competes very hard at home. He competes very hard in the drills. He competes very hard in the qualifying. But I think for him, like his game steps up a notch when the lights are shining the brightest, I guess. He feels like he can compete with anybody, and I think that we're in a sport, and I'm sure other sports probably feel this way too, but we're in a sport to where, like, sometimes you just got to have like that dog mentality inside of you, no matter what's happened. Like you have to step up on the first tee and believe that you can compete against anybody at any time. And I think, if you spend a little bit of time with Anthony when we get to a tournament or when we get on site, I believe that he has that mentality to where, again, it doesn't matter how good he hits it. It doesn't matter how many putts he makes. Like he just believes that he's going to go out there and play well and kind of manifest it a little bit, and that's what he's been able to do, and he's gotten a lot better of it as we've went on.
And look, I think Anthony no doubt deserves a good chunk of our conversation because of what he has shown and what he has proved. But as you know, to win a championship, which your program has been used to doing, I know is an expectation level. Where do you see the rest of the group, the rest of the team, as you head here for the final 2 weeks here, or I should say the final 2 competitions that you go into before you get to the Valley Championships?
Yeah, so we've had this conversation as a group. Every time that we've been fortunate enough to win, we've done it as a team. We've never looked at the leaderboard and been like, okay, we've had one guy win and everybody else has just kind of had mediocre weeks. It's taken a team. It's taken the entire group for us to go, and whether all 5 guys finish in the top 18 or 20 or whatever it is, 25, and being able to have that entire group play well, that's kind of where we've been striving for. And, if you look at this spring, I think we've had bits and pieces of that. We've got some guys that have played well at certain times. Just the consistency across the board just hasn't quite been there for that style of level. But I do think we took a step up at Oregon last week where, all 5 guys, even though they didn't have their best stuff, they kind of kept it in there. They kept their scores all there together. So hopefully we're kind of trying to build that momentum again as we head into April. But we know that it's going to be a team performance, no matter if it's, Anthony or any of the other guys that lead the way in the last 2 weeks. We need 5 guys to be able to step up and play well if we're going to, eventually bring a trophy back to Carbondale.
Look, and I always hate to kind of be on rinse and repeat with you because it's something I always bring up in our conversations, and you already hinted at it. Your schedule is always top-notch, and as you look at how you scheduled here in the month of April, what can these next 2 tournaments at IU, at Iowa, set this group up to know that you're going to be at your best or have the chance to be at your best here towards the end of the month of April when the Valley Championships are?
Yeah, no, again, I think it just kind of rolls in with the competition of we're not going to change anything from what we've been doing all year, right? If we're going to go to Indiana and Iowa, and that's going to be, and then we played 2 other Big Ten hosted events prior to that. So our last 4 events are all Big Ten hosted events, and so we're just kind of keeping that same train running. I think from competition-wise, it's really good, but, there's some things that I like just from golf course and location setup about these places. Like Indiana's a tough place. That golf course is extremely difficult and challenging, and for us, I think that's where we want to see how we stack up, because that course is it's going to be a mental drain, and those are kind of things that we've been trying to prepare for. So it gives us a chance a couple weeks before conference to see how do we handle that type of environment. And then the very next week is at Iowa, and the significance of that would be that our conference is hosted by Drake this year. So the very next week we're going to be in Iowa again. So we're going to get to kind of, it'll be 2 different golf courses, but we'll get to experience the same kind of elements and climates and conditions of kind of what we're expecting. So, so again, really looking forward to building even more momentum into April. I don't think that we have to sit here and say, hey, we've got to go win the last 2 events to have the momentum going forward. It's just we just need to continue to see the consistency in our games of that improvement of mental or physical or with the things that we've been working on, because that's what's going to help us build the confidence in what we need to do. And I think that, based on where we're trending, there would be no doubt that we can't go into Indiana and Iowa and perform and play at a high level. We've been able to do it in the past. I know you don't rest your laurels on what's happened in the history, but that's also kind of been, I would say, if I had wood here, I'd knock on wood. That's kind of been our MO is we've been a better team in the spring. We've found a way to always get better and try to rise to the occasion at the end of the year. And again, that's what I've challenged the guys to do as we head into these last 2 events, is we're continuing to try to get better and improve as we move forward.
And you'll do that this weekend at Indiana, and we'll be sure to catch up with you after these next 2 weekends. And before the conference championship, we'll preview that time, which is always a fun time for you, Coach Feccio, and your program. Thanks so much for coming on, stopping by, getting us updated, and we definitely look forward to what hopefully will be a really fun month of April here for you and your program.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and look forward to being back.
Once again, that was head coach Justin Feccio. We'll be back in just a matter of moments. This is Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale. Oh, she has been so much fun to watch this year as we welcome her on for her first interview here on Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale. It's none other than Mac on Crack, as we were just talking with Coach Jen Sewell just a segment ago. Mackenzie Newcomb joins us here on the program. Mackenzie, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
What's it like being a Saluki? What have you enjoyed most about coming into this program? Because you have been someone who has had some really high success in softball with personal accolades. Just really trying to get that team success is one of the reasons why you wanted to come here.
Yes, the culture. The culture is one of the things I really loved about SIU softball. Like, Jen talked about it with me whenever I first looked into the program, and then, I talked to some of the players that I knew, and I just knew from there, I was like, okay, yeah, I really love this place. And also, I've kind of had a little bit of a history. I was originally looking into SIU when I was in 8th grade, and just something happened, kind of fell off, so it was just kind of, I guess you could say, a
circle
a
back
big
around.
circle, yes, circling process, honestly.
When you were making that decision to leave Sanford, and again, ton of accolades that we can go through, but it would take up the whole time to go through everything you accomplished during your time there as a Sanford Bulldog. But as you were, getting into the portal, you were looking at your options. Was SIU pretty quick in terms of coming on your radar? Was it slow developing? How would you describe the process?
I would say my whole entire process was a little bit slow developing. Like I was just very, I'm trying to think of the word, but like I wanted to do my research. Like I did research on every school that reached out to me. Like I had over 100 schools that reached out to me.
Wow.
And so I wanted to make sure I was going to find the right fit again. I wanted to make sure the culture was correct. I wanted to make sure everything kind of fit me as a person instead of just following the big Power Five, big all this. Like I wanted to find something that mainly like was my home and was going to be my home for the next year.
How difficult and overwhelming is that when you enter and there's so much to decide? It's different for everybody, right? And when you have the type of numbers that you've had, that's going to be prone to a lot of schools being interested in your services. How did you dive through it? Like, what did you use best way to make it not seem so overwhelming?
Do not disturb. Like, I was getting emails, texts, and like I kind of mentioned before, I'm a little bit of an introvert, so like getting all that was very overwhelming. Like I remember telling my parents, I was like, I'm so ready for the process to be over with, because like whenever I was just narrowing down to 5 schools, like another one would pop up, and I'm just like, well, you got to be nice, you got to do your research. And then I was just like, okay, we kind of got to wrap this up. It's getting near the end of July. Like I need to figure out where I'm going to go, and then just everything like fit exactly where SIU was, and like everything that I wanted was in SIU. So
when you were doing your research, and so much of it is actually getting to meet the people who are here, and you already hinted at that, the culture that Coach Sewell and of course under Coach Blaylock and everything that's been built here. But what ultimately was the hook for you, Mac, when you finally got here, you were able to take a visit? What was like, no doubt, this is for me, this is where I need to be?
well, I always like to be an underdog. Like that's always been kind of how I am and how I've been. So, and this, in my opinion, is like one of the top mid-major programs, and like mid-major programs are considered the underdogs, especially whenever they come out on top. Like I remember watching SIU whenever they played Cal down in LSU, and like I remember watching all the pitching. I remember like Anna Carter, I played against her in high school, so like that's just a familiar face. Like, and that's kind of what I wanted. I loved their energy. I loved how they kind of just came out and wanted to win, like had that get-to attitude. So just everything kind of wrapped up for me. And then like I was just like I always told people, I was like, Southern Illinois, I wish I would have came earlier.
But you're here now, so we get to
Yes.
enjoy you now, and I know you've really, as you said, you've loved your time within this program, and that's saying that it's not like it's been all highs for you here. You've had to get through some personal adversity as well, and one of those is getting healthier. As we were just joking about in
Yes.
between the breaks, I was like, hey, Mac, how are you feeling? You're like, well, about as good as you can be at this time of year. How have you tried? Because it's such an important piece now, Mackenzie, as you know, when you get to this time of year in the season, taking care of your body, making sure that you can be at your best on every weekend is just such a huge priority for everybody.
Yes, making sure to stay in rehab with athletic trainer, which he's amazing. Gotta love him. Like he keeps me upbeat about everything too. Like whenever we kind of have a step back, he's like, "Hey, like it's gonna be okay. Like we're gonna have step backs, then we're gonna go forward." So like just kind of, and also keeping my body healthy wise, like eating right. Like I drink protein shakes every single day just to keep my muscles going. Like take collagen for my joints. Like it's just making sure I'm clicking like on everything. And it's not just missing one single piece. Like from the body to the mind, just everything.
We have talked about your personality, of how it's different from when, hey, we're in this conversation conversing, to when you are on the field. Has that been always easy for you, Mackenzie, to make that switch? When it's time to be the competitor now, you know that there's a difference you got to make once you're on the field.
I honestly, it's like my alter ego. I guess I get a confidence boost whenever I'm on the mound, because I know my abilities, I know what I can do, I know I can do for my team too. So, and then like off the field, like it's just completely different. But on the field, like I love myself on the field. Like it's going to be one thing I miss whenever I graduate and I'm done with the sport.
This team this year, what's impressed you about what this group has done, especially after what was a difficult start? But look, everyone knows you tested yourselves to the absolute fullest, and that's what the expectation is here. You're not afraid to go play people, and especially in their facilities. You did that early, and no doubt took your lumps. But now it's a completely different story. What's impressed you about what this team has done, Matt?
Honestly, like our hitting, like I absolutely love seeing our hitters put the ball in play, like power it. Like that is one of the like my biggest things that I'm impressed about. Like on our defense, like the way they have their pitchers' backs, like whether it's me or any of the other pitchers, and then on top of that, just the atmosphere that they create in the game. Like they make sure to keep it upbeat, not let anybody get down on themselves, and that's just impressed me overall because sometimes you don't get that in teams.
And to be such a veteran like you are, you have so many innings underneath your belt. What's impressed you, or maybe not even so much impressed, what have you tried to teach and mold into someone like Emma, who's going through very young in her career and what she's done on the mound, Emma Gibson, and where you're like, man, I could see her improving throughout this year, and it's why this team is getting better.
No, me and my dad were actually talking about her the other day and how proud we were of her. Like she's a very good pitcher. Like she can spot in, spin it. So she's got the confidence. I can see her being a really big star for SIU coming up in the next couple of years for sure. And like with the other pitchers as well, just making sure reinforcing like the mental side and then making sure it can hit the spots, spin the ball, like especially against, like you kind of mentioned, the big schools. Like that's one of the big things is like I've been in those competitions and I know from experience, like if you hit your spots, spin the ball and trust your teammates behind you and then score a couple runs, you will win it all day.
Mackenzie, there's been so much pressure, and look, pressure is a privilege, and all of you have talked about that when the target is no doubt on your back. You had a great weekend, being able to go on the road, take 2 or 3 from Belmont. It was intense, no doubt, the good chippiness that you want within a series. Now, how do you keep maintaining that as you go throughout the year? Because that could be a little bit of an emotional drain, but you got to make sure you are emotionally filled each and every weekend the rest of the way.
Honestly, kind of staying level-headed, like not letting it get to us, like keep working in the weight room, keep working on the field, like keep being us with the team chemistry. Like I feel like no matter what, like we can do anything that we put our minds to.
As you look through the rest of this year, what do you believe, Mackenzie, is, hey, if these are things we can continue to build on, not that everything's perfect right now, but if we can build on these things, we're going to be the version of the Salukis that we want to be when it matters.
Keep on building on hitting. Like I feel like we've done very good at getting like a lot of our people in the lineup going. Like keep building on defense, and then pitching in the circle. Like just like I said, keep building. Like it's like I feel like there's some things that we're going to have to get better at, and we'll work on those in practice. But like from so far, like we're doing really good at not peaking too early, and we're just kind of building off of each and every weekend that we get.
These are not always fair questions for me to ask at this point because I understand the work it takes, and there's still a lot of work in between now and when the conference tournament comes. But what would it mean to you, Mackenzie, to be a part of a team that is able to win a regular season championship and then which ultimately sets you up to have success in the conference tournament? Doesn't always guarantee that it's going to happen. It just gives you the best chance come the conference tournament with the number 1 seed. What would that mean to you? With everything you've accomplished so much as an individual, what that moment would mean and why it really motivates you here through the rest of the year?
It would mean everything. Like I've always wanted to win a conference, and like that's been always one of my main goals. And so being able to do this with this team and just it kind of shows that our hard work is going to prove itself. Yeah. So it would just be everything to me.
Mackenzie, appreciate the time, stopping by, sharing your story. It really has. It has been so much fun to watch you shine in that circle, and the best part is, we know there's many more moments to shine throughout this year. Can you keep the rain away? Is there any powers you have to keep the rain away from this weekend?
I truly wish.
I know, and if you did, we'd really like to hone in that power for sure. But whenever the 3 games get played this weekend, we look forward to them. Mackenzie, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. We'll take a timeout when we come back. We got plenty more coming up here on Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale. Here to close out Inside Saluki Athletics today, presented by Poly Eyes of Carbondale, is Aaron Lee from Saluki Softball. Aaron, thanks so much for taking time. Man, this has got to be a fun ride. That had to be an awesome weekend in Nashville with the group.
Yes, for sure. It was a blast. We knew going into it. It was kind of a big, determining weekend early on, so we really wanted to definitely get a series win and just keep working hard.
When you go into a weekend like that, look, they're all important, and they all add up to what ultimately is a goal of this group, which is to win a conference championship. But there's also those weekends that have different feels, and no doubt this past weekend did. How do you manage your emotions the right way?
I think just I remember the first game, we kind of came out and we're like, obviously Maya Johnson, great pitcher. We knew we were going to face her at some point. So the biggest thing was just being level-headed the entire time, and when we have the opportunities to do what we can do, take that as an advantage. And then, that second game wasn't the best, but we also knew going into the third game, like, hey, they're going to pitch her again. So it was kind of just being smart and taking advantage of the opportunities when they came.
Coach Sewell has described you as being that steady Eddie, that person where the emotions just are even keel. Look, sometimes it's not always easy to be that way. Has that always been a common thread for you, or is that something you picked up on? Because it's not your first year in the program. You've been surrounded around a lot of good players. Is that something that you've kind of learned just in your time coming up through the program?
Honestly, no. It's kind of just how I am. It's my personality. I'm a very quiet person. I put my head down, I just go to work, and I let the results show what I'm doing. But yeah, everybody always says, like, there'll be times where I'm like, my heart was racing during that, and people will be like, you didn't show it. And I was like, good, because that's the point. That's good. I'm glad I'm not, because internally I am, but I just don't show it because I don't want anybody to see it, and maybe that might affect how they're feeling, so yeah.
Look, there have been some pieces along the way that no doubt this group has missed in terms of injuries and trying to learn new pieces to this team and what it's going to look like, especially after last year. It was such a well-oiled machine. What did this group learn early when you're going through those trials and tribulations in early February and early March that is setting yourselves up for success right now, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm glad we went through that. It did suck at times, but I think especially the young ones and some of the transfers, they knew right after all that, like in the March and February when we were struggling, it kind of was like not a wake-up call, but it kind of flipped a switch to where I was like, okay, instead of let's dread about what's going on, let's use it. And I think that has definitely shown up so far in conference play.
For you personally, what do you believe you have been executing at a high level this year that's allowed you to perform in some really big moments? Not that the numbers are necessarily that drastic or eye-popping, but in crucial moments you've really been able to thrive.
I don't know. I don't know if I really have done anything different. I've kind of just played loose and know that, like, there's some people that aren't here like they were years before, and so I'm like, okay, like I gotta step it up. But I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of the same. I've just been still head down, go to work, and yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say there's anything different. I'm just kind of playing loose and not worrying about outside factors.
Yeah, and you talk about those outside factors. There are still a chunk of this team, whether it's Emma, Jackie, Anna, that have been big roles for years now.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you start looking to your left and right, and all of a sudden Liz Warwick isn't there, and some of these other pieces that have been such huge roles over the years during your time here, what's that moment like to go, oh, I'm one of those now? Like,
Yeah.
I'm filling that role.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember last year, like, there would be times where Jen will be like, okay, who's going to, like, there was one time in the beginning of conference, I remember it was ingrained in my head. She was like, you guys are going to have to step it up. Like, it's time to go. And I think this year we're definitely showing it. And I'm glad to look to the left and my right and see everyone who's by my side. Yeah.
Coach Sewell can be a very demanding coach, and I think the most positive way you can be. How would you describe how she picks and chooses those moments to be hard on you? But look, when you only got one win through the first 3 weeks of the season, you can be extremely hard on a team and break them. And it's clear this team did not break. What about the leadership within the program is a reason for that?
Yeah, I think she's definitely tough. But I think she also can see, like, hey, let's use this for later on the road. Like, she says it all the time, you don't have to be ready now, you have to be ready in May. That's the biggest thing. So, yeah, I think having that mentality is how we keep going. Yeah.
There has been such a high expectation level of winning. That can, in ways, like we talked about how pressure being a privilege, all of those things. But yet when I'm not around you as much as like Mike Trude is and others who truly travel with this group, but you really love being around each other. And there is just that charisma that this group has that not a lot of teams have, even the really good teams. What is it about this group specifically that leads to the charisma and the personalities and everything that you all have, Erin?
Yeah, I think we definitely don't shy away with how we act around each other. That's for sure. Yeah, and it's honestly been like that the entire, like, the past 3 years I've been here. Just the culture we've built and has been built before us. So yeah, we're always hanging out, and I'm glad that's that way because there's some teams that completely split, and I'm glad that's not how we are, and I'm glad that we just aren't afraid to be ourselves around each other.
Look, this weekend in terms of the schedule, we'll see what it is. I know the weather is going to kind of wreak havoc here on us for most of the week. But out of that being something you can't control, what does this team need to build off of what was an emotional weekend in Nashville, a big series win? Whenever you're asked to play against Indiana State, how do you turn that page and be the steady influence like you've been this year, Erin, for this team?
I think it's just not worrying about, numbers, where we're at, blah, blah, blah. I think it's just riding the momentum and hitting like we have been and staying sharp in the field and just keep playing ball.
Can you even describe the feeling of what it's like to be in a hunt? And what I'm referencing, of course, is to be in the thick of a conference championship hunt. And I don't think there's another feeling in life that you can even equate to that of pushing yourself to the ultimate limit to be the top of whatever league it is. Like, how much fun is that to be a part of this, Erin?
It's a blast. It's definitely an experience I want to live over and over again. But I think the biggest thing is just one game at a time, one pitch at a time, and not lose track of what is ahead rather than what's going on right now.
I could see why the steady influence has no doubt helped
for
this
sure.
Saluki softball team here with you. Erin, it really has. It's been a blast to see you just have such a really good year. And the best part is the year is far from over. There's still a lot of softball left. Thanks so much for coming on the show and spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Once again, that was Erin Lee here. Join us here on Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Polly Eyes of Carbondale. For Mackenzie Newcomb, Jen Sewell, who joined us, as well as Justin Fetcho, head coach of Saluki Men's Golf. That does it for Inside Saluki Athletics this afternoon. So for everybody, we'll see you around here in Little Egypt, Saluki Nation.
This has been Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Paulie Eyes of Carbondale. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.